Welcome to the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast, where feelings aren't felt and snowflakes melt. Buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
They painted over ants.
Well, guys, welcome back to the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast. I think most of you know what that video or that song, that sound was. A very controversial, quote unquote, song that has been getting all the news and all the hits and all the rips, because clearly the guy that wrote and is performing the song are a bunch of racists. I mean, that's clearly what's going on here.
Of course.
Just racist. How dare you have a song about American values and small town values and defending people from things like, thievery and thuggery and all these other things. So what I thought, oh, by the way, hi Russ, how are you?
Hello.
Good to see you, man. It's been a while since we put one of these down. I'm not even going to talk about why it's been so long since we put one of these down, because I literally sound like a broken record, and that has a double meaning.
To the fans out there in podcast land, let's just say if somebody had a cell phone around Coop over the last 2 weeks, we could have made all kinds of money on like ridiculousness and America's Funniest Home Videos.
Oh my god! And the best part is, seeing a 260-pound fucking white man go down hard 3 times now.
Well, hey everybody, this is Coop, the handsome and debonair one of the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast. Not to mention I'm the only one that's an actual bastard. Google that shit. Don't, actually. Hey, I'm here to do a shameless plug for our merchandise. You can find us at twogrumpybastardsmerchandise.com. We got a whole bunch of new merchandise in. I think you'll like some of the new choices. There's some pro-Second Amendment. There's some anti-Washington State Governor stuff on there. I think you'll really appreciate it. New stuff coming all the time. I have 2 great designs in the works, so please, to support this podcast, that's one of the easiest ways to do it. We're also on Etsy. Yeah, I know, Etsy. You can find our products on eBay as well. Storm King Mercantile is the name of the store there that fronts us. And there's many, many other ways to support this podcast, of course. We have a Patreon page, same thing, Two Grumpy Bastards. We certainly would appreciate you following us on Instagram. Most of you probably know we have a Facebook page, Two Grumpy Bastards Podcast. We have a lot of fun over there, a lot of frivolity, a lot of memes, and a lot of hard-hitting news, believe it or not. A lot of great people in that group. Also, all of the social media outlets, including now on TikTok. You can find us there. And one of the things that I really wanted to tell you is if you have any feedback for Russ, especially because he kind of sucks, feel free to email us at twogrumpybastards@gmail.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us, or you can always leave us a comment or an IM on, or DM, I should say. See, I'm so savvy. On our Facebook page. So we really appreciate you listening or watching us over there on YouTube as well. And we hope you do both, because Russ is something to look at. I said something. I didn't say something really great to look at. Anyway, thanks for listening. This is your intrepid, amazing, and grateful host of the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast, Coop. Remember, keep your focus and stay wokeless.
Anyway, the what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do a little round here. So Russ is going to read to you the lyrics, a few lines at a time, or however you want to do it, Russ, of Jason Aldean's song, and then I'm going to read to you some other songs, and just for a compare and contrast, and we can talk about what songs are really about violence and racism and horrible stuff. So Russ, you go ahead. I'm going to have to flip back and forth between the screen here and let's see. Okay, yeah, go ahead and start.
Okay. I'm not going to try to sing it like Jason Aldean, because if I could sing like Jason Aldean, I'd make more money than I do. Okay. We'll do this through the first 2 stanzas. Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. Y'all think it's cool? Well, act like a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag, and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough.
Okay. I think that's pretty clear. I think we know what he's referring to there. let me help us look back on some songs that are by some pretty famous people that got a lot of radio airplay. And I'm just going to give you a couple of controversial or quote unquote lines from a couple songs to start out with, and then we're gonna move into another one in particular. So this is from the song Black Korea from Ice Cube in 1991. And so I'm going to go ahead and rap this so everybody know I'm not going to do that.
Please don't.
So here we go. Ready? So don't follow me up and down your markets, or your little chop suey ass will be a target of the nationwide boycott. Juice with the people, that's what the boy got. So pay respect to the Black Fist, or we'll burn your store right down to a crisp. And then we'll see ya, because you can't turn the ghetto into Black Korea. That's beautiful. Those are touching lyrics.
Can we continue?
Please do. Jason Aldean.
All right. Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town. And then we can do the next stanza after you read your next one.
Okay, so here's another one. This is one of my, I'm going to read two just to let you know. Ice-T, again, who I think is a talented guy, kind of like him in his movies and some of the other stuff he's got, but very famous song from 1992 called Cop Killer, where he literally says, I'm about to dust, but I'm going to use my white guy voice here. I'm about to dust some cops off, cop killer. Better than you, or excuse me, that better than me, cop killer. Fuck police brutality. That's pretty. One more here. This one really, I love this one because let me find it here as I pulled it up. This is one of my favorites I've ever read. This is beautiful. Notorious B.I.G., who I didn't really know had a lot of like really violent stuff, but I guess there was a bit of controversy, me not being a rap aficionado. This is from one of his famous songs called Gimme the Loot. And it goes, then I'm dipping up the block and I'm robbing bitches too. Up the herringbones and bamboos. I wouldn't give a fuck if you're pregnant. Give me the baby rings and that #1 mom pendant. That is a delightful human being right there.
That sounds something we should model society after.
Absolutely. You know, robbing pregnant women and bragging about it. That's great. Okay. I'm sure he's just teasing. I'm sure it's just parody.
It's just, All right, let's see. Got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're gonna round up. Well, that shit might fly in the city. Good luck. Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to throw one more at you. So try not to throw up. Try not to get. Okay. I'm actually serious here. Trying to throw this up, and this is, and I realize I'm picking on a hardcore gangster rap culture here, but I am doing exactly that. This is by DMX, by his song called X Is Coming. Check this out. And if you got a daughter older than 15, I'm going to rape her. Take her on the living room floor right there in front of you, then ask you seriously what you want to do. Okay, that's for real. That's actually a song that exists. And people bought it and played it and listened to it.
All right, let me finish this up.
Yeah, go ahead and finish Mr. Aldean. I think I'm kind of sickened. I had a couple other ones. I was going to throw Eminem in there to try to get some balance, but I'm kind of sickened at this point. So I think I made my point. Go ahead.
Full of good old boys raised up right. If you're looking for a fight, try that in a small town. Try that in a small town. Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. And around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town. Try that in a small town. Ooh, try that in a small town. Now, one thing that you could have read if you really wanted people to vomit.
I got it. I can read it. I know what you're going to say.
Go ahead. If you can read my mind so well.
Okay. You want me to go ahead and just read some lyrics if I think I'm right?
Let's see if you're right.
All right. Because this is really fucking terrible. All right. Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. This is like the worst Dr. Seuss book I've ever read. I said certified freak 7 days a week. Wet ass pussy. Gonna make that pull-out game weak. Woo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you big fucking with some wet ass pussy. Bring a bucket and mop for this wet ass pussy. Give me everything you got for this wet ass pussy. I'm going to stop right there because I feel sorry for that poor little kitty cat. Obviously, the kitty cat fell in the bathtub.
Yeah, that's got to be it. No, I mean, paragons of American virtue.
Was I right? Was I right about?
Oh, you absolutely were right. That's exactly the one I was thinking of. That's the one that Shapiro decided to rap on his Daily Wire show.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say that anyone who watched the video and reads the lyrics and their minds automatically went to people of color, you're the racist. Okay. Most of the folks shown in those videos that were burning stuff down around circa 2020 were a bunch of, well-off liberal white people. That's what Antifa is, because they got nothing better to do than to sit around and say that they're fighting for the downtrodden folks from their parents' basements. The song mentions no race. Some folks tried to glom onto the fact that I guess the courthouse that was in the background, something like 102 years ago, had been used as the site of a lynching. I doubt Jason Aldean had any idea about that. If I was to research every single place that has ever been in a video for some kind of, horrible event, you're not going to have anything left. I mean, do you know how many things have happened in Times Square, and yet you see Times Square in a whole bunch of videos? I mean, give me a break. It's not any kind of dog whistle. It's one rando on the internet who figured it out, blasted it out to everybody else. Now everybody wants to, act like they're all offended. Grow the hell up. That's not what this is about. That's what you want it to be about, so you can try and feel righteous in your struggle.
I think you're exactly right. And I've seen a lot of stuff on social media and from people I kind of know a little bit, saying stuff like that, throwing things out there like that, these counter memes. I do have something I want to share with all you people that think that anything about this Jason Aldean video or anything or the song is racist. Here, this is what I want to share with you right here.
Shut the fuck up. Shut all the way the fuck up until you reach the top of Shut Fuck Mountain, where there are no more fuck ups to shut.
That's what I want to tell you right there.
Well, the
classic series right there.
Yeah, look, the backlash to all of this stuff is in full swing. People have for so long thought they could, because conservatives, for the most part, folks on the right, and even folks in the center, mostly just want to get on with their lives. They'll blather for a couple days, maybe a week, and it'll go away as they go back to shopping at Target and go back to buying whatever. And that's kind of what the woke corporate stuff and the woke crowd has counted on. But over the last year or so, ever since the end of Pride Month last year, I think people have finally said, all right, enough of the bullshit. I've had it. It started initially when the left decided to go after Chick-fil-A because one of the owners had the temerity to support marriage that only involved couples of the opposite sex. And that one really fizzled fast as people lined up outside to go to Chick-fil-A. Don't get me wrong, I love me some Chick-fil-A, but it ain't all that. All the press did though was drive people to it as a big fat fuck you to folks who were trying to boycott it. Now, you look at the Bud Light backlash. Bud Light dropped to like number 13 or 14 in the beers. It was the undisputed king of cheap beer in America for decades.
Decades, yeah.
And now you really can't give it away. I don't know that brand can recover short of a full shutdown, and then when it comes back, mea culpa, which it won't do because it's scared of pissing off the people who usually are shrieking about this. That's usually what happens is the left has been the loudest shriekers, and finally the right and the center have said, okay, well, we can shriek too. So they did Bud Light. They're trying to boycott this song. It shot it right up to number one. It's become, we are starting to see the emergence of dual economies, which can be very dangerous in our country when you start looking at the bifurcation of how people are going to start spending their money based on their politics. the boycotts of Bud Light work for two reasons. Number one, the demographics of Bud Light is the rural, conservative base. And so if you piss them off, you're not, there aren't enough Dylan Mulvaney's out there to buy beer. There just aren't. And the second part of that is the fact that, Bud Light's an easily replaceable product. I can go, to the next cooler over and get Coors or get Miller Lite. And it doesn't matter that some of the other corporations you're moving to are woke. The point is to make an example out of that one that was the most visible. I can go get cheap, shitty beer anywhere. It's an easily replaceable product. So, maybe some of these folks need to give a little bit more thought, especially since we're in such the middle of the backlash. I mean, I think we talked about this last time. You notice Pride Month this last time was not quite as in your face as it was the year before, because companies are finally saying, maybe we don't need to, push that too hard. We can try and play the middle. Not all of them. I mean, it's not like I think it should be in terms of not flinging it in your face, but it was not as pronounced as it was in 2022.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I know some people tried to fan those flames, but there is no pun intended in that, by the way.
Nice.
That's good. That was good. I swear there really wasn't. But remember our tagline: comedy, both intentional and unintentional. Anyway, I kind of lost my thought there for a second, but no, I think you're right. I know there's just been even people that I know, like a lady I'm very close to, one of my best friends. She grew up in LA, very liberal thinker about most things, very, very, very smart though, very pragmatic about a businesswoman. And she's one who would never has had, she was kind of a hippie and has friends from everywhere, every walk of life and all that. And even she's been like, yeah, it's just too much. It's too much. And I know my generalizations can kind of, be a little bit brusque, but I really, truly, we spend a month talking about where you throw your genitals because it happens to be with not somebody who's biologically opposite you. It's insane. It's fucking insane to me. And that's really,
well,
I don't think sexuality.
It's also activated the.
Go ahead.
It's also activated the anger in the public and the protective instincts, because now it's one thing when it's just when the motif is, two adults that just happen to be the same sex choosing whatever they want to do. When they started pushing this shit really hard on children, everything from the mutilation and poisoning of children to, give them the physical appearance of another sex, to trying to indoctrinate them with books about how boys should be able to finger each other's anuses, people finally said, okay, well, enough of this shit. We're going to push back.
Yeah, it's just too much. And I know we sound like a couple of damn old white homophobes sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's really not about that. I joked with somebody the other day, a friend of mine online who I've known since high school, who's a really amazing chef, local chef, and he had Winston Marsalis's jazz records that were named after the seasons and stuff like that. And he said, this might be the gayest thing I own, and they were LPs. And I go, well, I'm straighter than a machine manufacturer or a aero manufacturer, and I own those on CD. What does that tell you? And then ha ha ha, because he knows me. That's the way these things should be. It should be just a good, harmless way to go about your life and acknowledge differences and, have fun with it like that. That's what I enjoy doing with people. And these harpies and shrill shriekers and the Dylan Mulvaneys and these, militant people who are virtue signaling, dog whistling assholes who just want to be put out there. I'll go back to it again. Social media makes everybody a hero, makes everybody a legend. They just want to be seen as this thing. And I don't understand why people aren't understanding that you're not being seen as this thing. You're being seen for exactly what you are, a virtue signaling piece of shit who actually probably is miserable. You don't have a life, man. You don't have a real life that you're proud of or that you're actually doing something. And so you're fucking miserable. And I get it. It's the human condition to do stuff like that, but knock it off already.
Yeah. Well, like I said, people have had enough and have not just started to ignore, but actually actively fight back. I don't know how much you know about the group Just Stop Oil.
The what? Which one?
It's a group called Just Stop Oil.
I don't think I know anything about them.
All right, they're the ones who started by throwing soup on paintings, and they've been blocking traffic. A couple things have been happening recently. First of all, some videos have come out of Great Britain and Germany where these schmucks have been walking down the road slowly and blocking traffic, and people are getting out of cars and beating the shit out of them.
I have seen that. Yes, I have seen that.
There was some badass bitch in Germany that grabbed a couple of the protesters by their hair and literally flung them off the road.
I've seen that. That's what that group is. That's because I've seen that. That's the context. Okay, I've seen the videos of the truck drivers getting out and basically them just getting dragged and beaten practically.
Well, I saw one truck that decided he's just going to go. When he started rolling forward slowly, the guy sat down in front like he's going to stop it, was getting pushed back and decided I don't need to get squished by a 10-ton truck and rolled out of the way.
I saw that one too.
But did you see what happened at the Just Stop Oil banquet?
No.
Oh my God. This was hysterical. Okay, so Just Stop Oil was having some kind of dinner, gathering, banquet. I don't know what the fuck. I mean, could you imagine being at this thing? You got half the rooms, they can only eat tofu and all kinds of other crap. They're gonna give speeches about how much they struggle with their sexuality, whatever. I don't care.
Imagine being around those people. Oh my God! Wow, no.
But so a couple of folks came into the room, and they're not really paying attention. It looks like a celebration. So you got a couple of folks bringing in orange balloons. They're filled with helium, and they go to and the banquet is being held in this. I don't know if it's an old theater or an old church, but it's got really high ceilings. So these people walk in, and Just Stop Oil folks are getting ready to have their speechifying and all their discussions. And these people in different corners of the room, they've got their balloons filled with the helium, and they attach rape alarms to them. Turn the rape alarms on, and set the balloons free to go up into the rafters. And these balloons with the rape alarms are shrieking at the Just Stop Oil people in the middle of their dinner, so they can't, they can't hear themselves talk. It's this big ringer, ringer, ringer. If you get the chance, go on YouTube, watch the video. It's absolutely hysterical.
Fucking clown show. I can't even imagine being on a bus for like 10 minutes with one of these fucking people. I remember when I first went to grad school up at the University of Washington in Seattle in the early 90s, how just shocking it was, how just, reprehensible it was to be around these angry leftist people. And it wasn't anywhere near as shrill back then as it was now. You could, I was instantly hated by a lot of people in my class because of my color, my background, and, my politics. But, I was, and I knew that.
And how they react to me.
But it was just, being around these people. Can you imagine actually choosing this as a lifestyle and around these people all the fucking time and going to like banquets and like hanging out at that goddamn coffee shop, like, and friends with people like that? Oh my God.
Well, the only people who could do that are pansies who've never had to do anything in the real world. They feel like they have to have some kind of struggle. They need to be part of something bigger. And they don't get what the real world is like. Like, I mean, you don't see folks in India or China, doing this stuff. You don't see folks in, sub-Saharan Africa worried about, whether or not, they're going to buy an EV. They're worried about their kids forcibly being marched to the cobalt and lithium mines to get the battery shit for the EVs.
Right.
But they're not worried about all this other stuff. And as one of my new heroes, Konstantin Kisin, says, you are not going to get these poor people to stay poor just because you feel bad about stuff.
That's exactly right. It's interesting. Probably listen to a conversation I was having today. Have you watched the Matt Walsh documentary yet?
I have.
The one of the best parts in that documentary, and I've studied this on other outlets, was when he's talking to that woman from the tribal woman about, and the entire concept of having more than two genders doesn't even exist. It's not even a concept that they could even know about. But what really struck me about that conversation was he went off on kind of his tangents about, well, are you a happy person? And, here's a woman that lives in very primitive squalor, nothing, almost no material possessions. And she thought it was the dumbest question in the world, because of course I'm happy. I take care of my children. I take care of my husband. My husband's a good man. Of course I'm happy. I'm very happy. And I've done a lot of studies, both in my schoolwork and kind of on my own, the rate of depression and the rate of suicide and all of those type of mental health issues and addiction in the United States is not just a percentage. It is volumes higher than anywhere else in the world. anywhere else. I
Orders
mean,
of magnitude.
orders of magnitude. I mean, Russia, probably Eastern Europe. I bet you'd find quite a bit if they actually accurately did it. But it is nuts, dude. And the happiest people in the world are these simple, people who belong to a tribe of some type. And I don't mean like a primitive tribe. I mean a group of people where they have a place in that culture that's important. That's the happiest people in the world. And they have no depression.
Yeah.
They have no depression in those tribes. None. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, this is not to make light of some of the struggles that they do have, but I mean, there is a lot to be said for having a purpose, having a mission in life, knowing what is expected of you, and doing that to the better fulfillment of yourself and your community. And I think that's what's driving a lot of this stuff right now. Is so many folks want to have a purpose, but all the quote unquote big purposes have been taken. We've solved a lot of stuff. We have made tremendous strides in racial harmony and in civil rights. We've made tremendous strides in overcoming poverty. We've made tremendous strides in gender equality. Even though we still have some to go, this is not the 1920s where you have, the 1870s where you have the woman walking down the street holding banners because she can't vote. This is not. We don't have the where you're like throwing homosexuals off the top of buildings or lynching African Americans for catcalling white women. We've gotten past that kind of stuff, and now some folks are almost upset that they have missed that struggle, that they kind of invent shit.
I think that's exactly right, and that's very consistent with almost any model of modern human psychology too. You gotta have a struggle. You have to have that hero's quest, and that's deep in our archetypes, and that's deep in our hierarchies to have that. It's another thing. I was having a conversation with Jordan Peterson, my hero. He just get up and make your damn bed. I love Jordan, but hierarchy is big on his theme. I mean, he's huge on the necessity for hierarchy, for humans to be happy. Or as I like to joke all the time from Master and Commander, men need to be governed, sir. And whether that governance is from other men or from the God that you believe in or your religion, your family, whatever, but it's right. And that's one thing that's completely missing now in our culture, is that it has been modern feminism has been and the modern left movement and the woke movement is completely about removing hierarchy. Problem with you dumb fuckers who think that's okay is when you remove it, you completely remove almost everything that's human about us as well. Yeah, that the evolutionary, we talk about the savannah brain. We've talked about that a lot. Hierarchy is absolutely necessary. Hierarchy does not mean slavery. It does not mean anything like that. But it means it's very important that there is a hierarchy both in your personal life and in the system that you're in. And, when I got out of the Army, dude, that's when life really got hard for me because I didn't have a hierarchy anymore. I really didn't. I mean, there was nobody telling me what shots to call and what shots not to call and being tough on me and all that stuff. And that's when I started having my life issues really start welling up. And it's profound how that can happen to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we talked with Savannah Brain, the level of pampered comfort we've had has really been a very recent phenomenon. And when I say recent, we're talking last 75 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that does not excuse some of the, atrocities we had before, everything from the racial segregation to genocides and whatnot. Obviously, that's a good thing to overcome. But the human struggle used to be about trying to stay alive, trying to continue your line. And that's where that stuff comes in. That's how we are wired. And being taken out of that, I mean, I don't worry where my next meal is coming from. Okay. I don't worry about somebody down the street coming in and robbing me. I don't worry about, whether or not my children have clothes on their back to keep them warm. And for most of human history, that was the primary struggle. We formed communities in order to try and do for the greater good, come together and alleviate those things. But everybody had a purpose, whether you were a tailor, whether you were a farmer, whether you were a hunter, whether you were rearing children. You had a specific purpose, and your life was molded by that purpose. And we've kind of lost that because it's not necessary to survive to have that purpose anymore. But whether it's necessary or not, we're still hardwired, so we're out there groping in the dark to try to figure out what that purpose is.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the second piece to that that's really important too is that part of the hierarchy, which is a positive part of an idea of a hierarchy, is that the idea of competition. And I don't even mean that like in its traditional sense. I mean, like growing up, and well, I had to walk through the snow, but you weren't allowed to just walk up to a group of adults who were talking and just butt in and start talking. I'd have gotten backhand. You waited your turn. Adults, we were just like these things. Go outside, stay outside all day. You can drink out of the garden hose. That really is how I grew up.
Come back when the streetlights come on.
That's right. And here's the thing: you had to compete because you had to be smart. Because if you had your opportunity to share something or talk, whether it was at school or your group of buddies or whatever around adults, you better have some content. All right. Otherwise, everybody's going to think you're a dumb. Now, God bless America. I was a smart kid. My mom always made sure I had books. And so I got along with all the other parents and, all that kind of thing. And so I had as much respect as a little kid could have with adults. I did. I was very fortunate in that. And God bless that. That's been the biggest thing in my life that got me through a lot. But you had to work for it. You couldn't just get on to this thing called the interwebs and share your opinion that has no base in fact or anything. And I mean, I can remember how many times one of us in the family, even the family that I grew up in, would be running over to the Encyclopedia Britannica to check each other. We're fact checking all the time. No, I mean, my mom would take me to the library to fact check stuff that we would hear in conversations. You couldn't get away with a lot of stupid shit. And you would think with access to all this information now, like people, like the whole idea going back to the Jason Aldean, kind of come full circle on that. One of the shots happens to be outside a courthouse where something terrible happened. Yeah. Okay. Why didn't somebody fact check that? Why didn't somebody go back and go, when did it happen? Where's Jason Aldean from? I mean, did he put it in there because he believes in lynchings? The guy's a businessman. Okay. Yep. He makes his living because people want to listen to his music. You really think that he's the modern face of the KKK? Hey, stupid fuckers. Bring something relevant to the table. I gotta tell you, I gotta share one more thing. This is really how I feel whenever I just think about how stupid people are and how they I know you got on me last time because it's like, well, you expect people to be, decent people. Yeah, well, this is how I feel about people in general now.
That motherfucker back there is not real. And you can sit on this plane and you can fucking die with them or not. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I saw the crazy lady. I mean, maybe she was shifting between realities. You never know.
Maybe she just had enough of everybody. Because I swear to God, I don't believe some of the stuff I see on Facebook or some of these. Listen to AOC talk during the UFO hearings the other day. I'm like, I don't think she's real. I honestly don't. I think she's like a holographic projection by some trickster like Loki in a different universe fucking with us. I don't think she's real. You can't be that.
That's stupid.
Gosh, how did she fucking remember how to breathe during most of her life, or where to go find a water tap?
You got to remember that a lot of, Congress is not leadership in a democracy in general is not about how smart you are. It's not about how competent you are. It's could you win a popularity contest? And it took until I got older to understand that the people in Congress, people who win the presidency, these are the same assholes that were eating paste in first grade. Okay, they're not any smarter. They just happen to make friends easier, mostly because there are a lot of other stupid people out there. The only group of people that I might grant a smidge of marginal competence to are the justices on the Supreme Court, only because of how they have to get selected and lifetime tenure, what they have to do to even be eligible. But most of the rest of them, no. I do want to revisit one point real quick. You mentioned competition and stuff. I've heard it argued, not unpersuasively, that one of the reasons for the rise of sports, global sports, whether football, basketball, soccer, whatever, is tied back to our need for tribal competition. We used to do that through raiding each other's towns and villages and raping and pillaging everywhere. And now that that's unacceptable, we do it by dunking basketballs over people's heads. So it's still a primal, kind of tribal expression of dominance. It's just done in a different way where we don't, slit each other's throats, thankfully.
I 100% agree with that. And yeah, it's not going backwards at all. Sports is not going backwards. NFL gets more popular every year. College football keeps exploding. Gladiator sports. Look at the rise of UFC. I mean, it was popular. I remember back when I used to host those UFC parties back when you and I worked together, 15 years ago, whatever it was. But it is just a thing. And oh, by the way, it's kind of nice. It parlays into the fact that I got a quick video of Dana White that I want to play here.
Oh, I think I've seen this, but I was actually about to mention this.
Yes. So I think it's absolutely right. And, Corolla famously says, he says things over and over and over, but one of his famous things is we're going to evolve. And he was saying this 10 years ago, we're going to evolve to a place where there's nothing left but safe spaces and octagons. People are going to go one of two directions. And he's right. Like the rise of, I get so sick of seeing all the photos on social media, like the tough mud competition and, thank you for the 95 photos that you took of yourself at this place. Really interesting. One or two would have been fine, but, things like that. And I'm not saying nothing wrong with doing that stuff. That's fun and it's competitive. And that's the way some people get their juices out. I mean, I have seen so many, when I started martial arts very, very young and continued martial arts for all my life. And there was almost, except for like Taekwondo and some of the less contacty sports, there was very few females in the competitive martial arts sports that I did. Oh my God. You should see like at the, locally, even at the Tai Chi place, even, martial arts like that, or at the, what am I trying to say? CrossFit place, which is not a martial art, but it's a very, very, very aggressive style of working out. Some of the girls that like to put a gi on and roll, there are most of these classes I'm seeing are more women than men now. And that's not, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's great. I'm just saying there's that need for that expression and that competition. You need
the only issue comes down to when they get into that and think they're Scarlett Johansson on a screen and they can actually go out and kick some dude's ass.
I understand.
That's not the way the real world works. I like, just real quick before you do the Dana White thing, I like to tell a story about what happened. I think did I tell a story from when I was 15 and in the chess club.
You did.
Okay, yeah.
So doing chicken fights in the pool.
Yeah,
hey,
ladies, I'm glad you can defend yourself. You need to defend yourself well enough against a host of men, and hopefully you can get to where somebody can you can find some safety. But stop thinking you're going to take down Thor. It's just not going to happen. Do you remember? Real quick, do you remember when we were at Sac State? We used to play the Army Air Force football game.
Yeah,
between the ROTC departments. Okay, I used to love being on the defensive line for that because it was an irony thing for me because I was so scrawny growing up that now that I had some beef on me, I love being on the defensive line where you're just pounding each other. And I lined up on the defensive line, and God bless her, some little, blonde, 110, 115 pound cadet lined up on the opposite side of me. And being a gentleman, I'm like, okay. And I moved on the other side of the line. She followed me to the other side of the line. At that point, I was like, okay, welcome to the real world. And they snapped the ball, and I think I knocked her back about 10 feet and just, plowed right over her and got to the quarterback in about 2 seconds. The Air Force folks were like, what? How could you do that? I'm like, dudes, if you had an ounce of chivalry in you, you'd have gotten your happy ass out here instead of putting a woman in your place to be against me. But I'm like, folks, I tried to do the right thing and be the other side, but some folks have this perverted view of what they think they can do. And I'm like, all right, well, when it gets to the real world, we'll see if your Black Widow fantasies hold up.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I do remember that situation. I also remember that my counterpart there at the Air Force side wanted to kick your ass pretty badly about that. So, but
I noticed he didn't get out on the field to do it.
No, he and I had a quick conversation that went away very quickly after I let him know that I'd be the one he would be taking a swing at. So he was an okay guy. He got pretty fired up. He was fine.
This the same guy that got on me about yelling at the cadets?
Yes.
Can I tell that story real quick?
Well, hold on a sec. No, I don't think so. The guy that I'm referring to was a bigger dude. He was
okay, I know who you're talking about.
He was cool. He's a cool guy. He was a captain. He's a bigger guy,
Yeah.
Hispanic guy. Yeah. He just got pissed about that. He saw one of his kids get tossed around by you, and he thought he was going to intervene. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to.
I did. Well, first of all, I didn't want to do it. I moved around specifically to avoid the situation. When she followed me to the other side of the line, I'm like, well, I'm going after the quarterback. I'm not, going to take it easy just because you think that you can stand there. I'm going to show you, if nothing else, I'm going to show you what the real world does. And I think that's a lesson. Well, I think that's a lesson in itself. I actually, one time when I was training the cadets up at Fort Lewis, I had 2 cadets. One of those pulling security on a so-called, opposing force prisoner of war, and this one other little cadet that was transcribing information, and neither one of them was paying attention to this opposing force dude who they had supposedly subdued. That was just Vulcan mind meld. I just looked at him, and he looked at me, and I just kind of jerked my head, and he went over and grabbed the other cadet in a choke lock, and people suddenly went nuts. And I'll bet you anything that those 2 cadets remember that for the rest of their lives. When they get into a real life situation, don't screw around. This can actually mean the difference between life and death. So pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know who you're talking about. That guy I actually got a little bit of respect for, because he came out on the field and we went at it on the defensive line, trying to bowl past each other. And I can respect that he finally got out there and we went mano a mano about that. But, what are you expecting on a football field? We're not playing badminton.
Exactly. Oh, nothing like ROTC war stories to get my blood stirred.
I know. Once on the volleyball court.
Remember that one time on that 2-mile run? Yeah, that was like hard. That was, it was a little different back in when you and I went through ROTC than when you and I were teaching it. I was just astonished at how little they had to be committed to the program. I mean, because it was a full-time job when I was a scholarship cadet back in my. It was a full-time job. Plus, I was trying to get
it was like another major at college.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you were doing something almost every weekend, especially if you did like O'Melveny's Rangers or Ranger Challenge or anything like that. That's all you did. Especially if I was trying to get a medical school and be an athlete and do all that stuff at the same time. So that was fun days, man. I was so tired at the end of every semester that I could barely move, but I loved every minute of it. I did.
But there's still things that we were able to do when we taught ROTC you probably couldn't do today. Like, dividing the cadets into 2 camps. One is the dumb fuckers, one of the stupid fuckers. That's probably not something I could get away with today.
Yeah, I get reminded sometimes of some of our guys out there of some of the things that I said or did with my sense of humor. Yeah.
Well, and to go back to that story.
You're right. I could not get away with it. There's no way.
I want to. All right. Difference between Air Force and Army. There was a couple of.
We only got a few more minutes for the pod, Ruts. That would take years.
Well, there was a couple of times I actually somewhat, I wouldn't say yelled, got on the cadets from the Air Force. One time they were lowering the flag outside and they were doing something wrong, and I tried to correct them. I said, "Hey guys, you need to do it like this," and they just kept doing it wrong. I said, "Or you can ignore me like I'm a complete asshole," and that offended them. And then a few weeks later, we were doing an Army physical fitness test on the track, and the Air Force cadets started getting on the track. And I'm the first time like, "Hey, we're doing a PT test. Get off the track." And they got off the track, and they started getting back on the track a little more. Like, "Hey guys, we got a PT test. Get off the track." Well, the third time they got on it, I went into Major Meyer mode at the time, and very brusquely and profanely told them to get their ass off the track. Well, they went and bitched to their head lieutenant colonel, who did not like me yelling at his cadets. And we had a discussion in his office about it. And I'm like, "Sir, in the Army, what I said would have not raised a single eyebrow. That's just the way it is." I said, I was told a long time ago by First Sergeant McCain, when I was in ROTC, a brusque son of a bitch, came to us right out of the 82nd Airborne. That if you can't handle getting yelled at, you're in the wrong line of work going to the military.
Yeah.
So but again, the difference in the cultures between the Air Force and the Army would not have raised a single eyebrow. Our boss, Colonel Conley, kind of laughed when I told him that the Air Force dude was upset. Because I don't even remember the dude's name. Said he's going to go talk to Colonel Conley about it. I was like, okay, we can call him on the phone right now. But I guess in the Air Force, I wasn't sensitive towards their feelings. I guess in the Army today, I wouldn't be sensitive towards their feelings either. I can only imagine how that conversation would go today.
I got it. Speaking of Army and Air Force, I have a million stories too, but I would dating would be a word that would be in, I wouldn't necessarily say that word would be accurate, but there was an Air Force lieutenant that I hung out with sometimes, and she was up, and I was at Hood, and she was up in I can't remember, North Texas, the big one up there, the basic training area up there. Anyway, she was a basic training company commander, and I stopped by one day I was driving from Texas to home to Washington State for leave. I was driving my Jeep through there, and I stopped by to see her, and she gave me a tour. And this is basic training, dude, and this is early 90s, right? So the military was a little tougher back then than it is now. We were just coming out of Desert Storm. We had a professional military that we were proud of again and all that. And I'm walking around going, wow, this is really nice. Is this the officers' quarter, or is this the officers' club? Tablecloths, glass, real glasses, silverware. No, that's where your basic trainees ate 3 meals a day. They didn't have barracks. They had roommates and apartments
in basic training.
I'm not Wichita Falls.
Wow.
Wichita Falls, Texas. I am not making this up. This isn't a, Army versus Air Force thing. I was astonished because, you and me, we got those luxury accommodations. Like for me, my very first exposure to any type of real Army thing was World War I open bay barracks. And
yeah, same with me.
Yeah, and shitters with no doors or stalls, just 5 shitters lined up next to each other. Not even stalls in between the shitters.
The luxury was going to airborne school, and the barracks were 4-person rooms, and it's just one room with 2 bunk beds in it, and your bathroom was down the hall.
Yeah, that'd be pretty luxurious, actually.
I consider that luxurious based on I just come out of mini camp where it was the open bay World War II type style barracks where you're sharing a room with 24 other dudes.
Oh, it was horrendous. And I mean, I never slept a wink. I could not wait to get out in the field because I could at least, I didn't get much rack out in the field, but I got rack. You could actually fall asleep out there because you're not surrounded by the ugh, hated that situation. Anyway, we got way the hell off topic. Let me play this. That's all right. We didn't need to accomplish a whole lot with this one anyway. We basically wanted to talk about Jason Aldean. Let me play this video for you. It goes in line with everything we've been talking about. So I love it. I'm not a Dana White fan, so to speak, for him being a great human being or anything like that. I actually kind of don't care for the guy much, but I do respect. I fucking balls respect the guy. I mean, he knows exactly what he wants, and he does it, and he doesn't make it. And he's like, so many people need to learn when you're right. Like Davy Crockett said, go straight ahead. Don't fucking apologize for being right ever, because then they'll come after you. So let me play this video really quick. You said you've seen this, perhaps?
I think it's the one that I'm thinking of. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
I know you say, hey, this is the fight business. People say nasty things, right? But the tension between those two and kind of the racial undertones and all those things, how do you...
What were the racial undertones?
Drigga says he's the real African fighter, and so, Israel dropped some N-words in there tonight.
So what was the racial? Who did? Who dropped the racial?
Israel was saying over and over, yeah.
He's black.
50 N-bombs in
there.
Okay,
he's black. Who gives a shit?
I was going to say, so you don't have any concern about the way the build-up, the tension between those two?
I could care less. This is the fight business. Israel Adesanya can say whatever he wants to say. Who gives a shit? Why, are people bitching about that?
Some people,
of course they are. Oh, fucking A. All right, got it. Yeah. Too fucking bad.
All right.
Yeah.
Last thing.
I love that.
I saw that and I was like, mad respect, Dana. Don't ever change.
I know it's been a couple of weeks, but I pulled it down to use for the podcast, and I've kind of been sitting in my collection for a while. Then getting to thinking about today's podcast, pop that back up in my head. I'm just, I mean, that's perfect. That is perfect because then there's no discussion. You're shut down. There's people out there like that. Corolla is certainly that way. Corolla doesn't apologize for jack shit, even if he should sometimes, in my opinion. Oh, by the way, podcast alert. I've got to tell you and people, I listened to one of my favorite podcasts I've ever listened to in my entire life yesterday. When I was out and about. It's the Mike Rowe podcast. You know who Mike Rowe is, of course.
Yes.
Dirty Jobs guy, and the blue collar hero guy.
Yeah, I like him.
And he definitely comes from a libertarian, blue collar. He has huge charities that try to advance not the idea of going to college, but going to trades. Putting more kids into trades, giving them a purpose and a skill. No, he's not an anti-college, but he just thinks more people would be better at that than actually becoming. We've had an influx in the academic world in the last 70 years, and we've created basically a caste system of weak people. Yep. And they've taken over the education system. Anyway, so Greg Gutfeld's got a book out. And Greg Gutfeld came on his podcast a few days ago, and it was 2 hours of sheer joy listening to those guys suck each other off. I mean, it was just, we're talking about a bromance.
I need to find this one.
You'll love it because Gutfeld, he was coming back from work. He was driving, I guess he does like an hour and 45-minute commute. And of course, Gutfeld is the number one man in late night talk show. You never hear the media talk about who the talk show king or the late night king is. It's Greg Gutfeld now. Thank you very fucking much. And I love Greg Gutfeld. I love me. He's one guy I could hang out with. I think
I got to see him in person at Graceland.
So you were saying, yeah, and he's
a lot shorter than he looks on TV.
Right. And I'm going to get his book. I'll probably get the audio version because I just don't sit around and read anymore. So he, on the way back from work, was in the back of his limousine where it was perfectly fine for him. Dude, he didn't have half a heat on. He had about 2.5 heats on. He was like about a bottle and a half of red wine in when they had this conversation. So you can imagine the kind of hilarity that ensued from he and Mike Rowe, who's a man's man and a guy's guy, going. And Gutfeld is no doubt he's a man's man, but I think he in life has overcompensated a little bit from he admits it.
He's a short dude.
And and a lot of people don't realize about him, he really kind of cut his teeth being a men's fitness editor and writer, very much into the fitness.
He's jacked if you see him in person.
Yeah, so he's a very interesting guy. And I think he's one of the funniest fucking people on planet Earth. I mean, I will go to YouTube. I don't watch the entire show, but I'll catch his monologue pretty much every day on what he said on Gutfeld the night before, because the people he surrounds himself with, Tyrus and Kat Timpf and some of the comedians that come on there. It's a joy to watch that show when I have time, because they have such a great chemistry. But oh God, please, everybody out there, go to Mike Rowe's podcast. Let me make sure I know what it's called. I've been subscribing to it for years, and I don't usually listen to it, but I'm glad I pulled that one up. It is The Way I Heard It with Mike Rowe. And everybody knows who Mike Rowe is. He's also the voice of what's the Alaska crab fishing show? He's the Deadliest Catch. He's the
Deadliest Catch. That was the Greatest Catch. Yeah.
Yeah, Deadliest Catch.
So narrates how the universe works.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there before we
I'll go looking for that.
Yeah, it's great. I was laughing. I mean, laughing out loud for like an hour and a half. And it just, some of it was vile and stupid, and you can tell Gutfeld is drunk. It's
awesome.
And he's one of those kind of guys that you get around a lot of people that are drunks and you don't want to be anywhere near him. He would be a guy that I could handle being around when he's drinking because he's just funny.
He probably has to drink because Fox's ratings are in the toilet.
Yeah, well, he's still doing well though. His ratings are still. He's carrying Fox News or that Fox channel right now. You froze up on me, bro.
Yeah.
You froze up on me there. I don't know if you were talking or not.
All right. No, okay, I'm back. I froze up for a second. I say Gutfeld's about the only one doing well.
He is. Although I see Jesse Waters' ratings are staying pretty steady.
Yeah, but they're not pulling what Tucker did when they got rid of Tucker.
God,
Fox News is now losing to MSNBC, which they hadn't lost for like 20 years.
I know, it's crazy. I do like me some Jesse Waters, though. He's an arrogant prick. I like him. And he's unlike Michael Knowles, who's an arrogant prick, but just the biggest pussy on planet Earth. Jesse Waters is actually a dude I could hang out with.
Yeah, well, I like Michael Knowles just because he is such a conceited, arrogant prick.
God, he's the worst. And the way he dresses, he's such a little dandy. God.
that's part of the charm. That's part of the appeal. It's fun to listen to him and Shapiro go back and forth at each other.
I realize it's part of his shtick. I get it, his image, but it's just like, well, When he was on, I listened to Ted Cruz's The Verdict with Ted Cruz, the podcast.
Yeah.
And he used to be his right-hand man on there. And I hated him on there. And then he moved on up, with Ben and the boys, got this big gig, and they replaced him with this guy, Ben something. He's like a conservative radio talk show host from back east. And he is everything about Republicans that people hate.
Oh God.
The way he looks, the way he exaggerates everything. Senator, this was just a cavalcade of, I'm just like, and I'm like, oh my God. And Ted Cruz is so distinguished and so well-spoken and so intelligent. And you got this guy doing the jibber jabber next to him and doing all the commercials. All right, Senator Cruz, that's great. But first, let's talk about gold. Your family should be investing in gold like my family. And the guy looks like a pumpkin in real life. I had to do a deep dive on it. Who the fuck is this Ben dude? He's terrible. So they replaced, I wanted Michael Knowles gone. Guess what? Michael Knowles becomes a national phenomenon and they get replaced.
Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. I got exactly what I deserved from that one, I guess. So I know.
Like,
I don't know.
like everybody
I
who wants
wish Knowles didn't bug me so much. I wish he didn't, but he does.
Well, Knowles bugs me less when they're in the backstage, which means there's like 4 or 5 of them together talking. When he's part of a conversation as opposed to the sole focus, he's very tolerable. It's when he's only himself. Now, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos. When he taking apart some of the liberals in the crowds at some of these universities, that's where the conceited stuff really works his advantage, because he is absolutely brutal when he dismantles these people.
He is. I've seen that, and he is very talented. I'm not saying he's not a smart guy or talented or anything like that. I'm just basically saying if I was in the same room with him, he would run. He would lock me out probably, because if I ever had the pleasure of going back and meeting those guys, Shapiro and the Daily Wire guys and stuff like that, I would be like, I don't want Knowles in that fucking room. I'm telling you right now.
I don't think Shapiro wants Knowles in the room.
I don't know. I got to admit, I love me some Ben Shapiro, but his style and all that kind of thing sometimes grates on me. As much as Matt Walsh pisses me off, I love Matt Walsh's shtick, and I love his demeanor. I love his delivery. And I love the fact that he's so deadpan, and people think he's completely serious about saying something.
He's the straight man, yeah. He's the Tommy Lee Jones straight man.
But he's a lot of times he's fucking pulling the wool over people's eyes. He's giving you a MacGuffin right in front of you and you don't see it. They're like, I can't believe he said that. He'll do that every podcast. I'm like, oh my God, that's hilarious. He just said that.
Well, in fairness, I like Matt Walsh. I'm a Shapiro guy just because I relate to him.
Sure.
We think very similar. We're both, short dudes.
Orthodox Jews.
For the intellectual pursuit on stuff. I don't talk as fast as he does, but he's the one I gravitate to the most because he's the one I relate to the most. Now, again, at the same time, when it comes to like watching The Big Bang Theory, I relate to Sheldon a lot. So I mean, I'm that kind of. That's why what I like to say is people like Sheldon, people like Shapiro, people like me, we're fun to read about and maybe see on TV. You don't really necessarily want to meet us all that often.
I bet you it would be interesting to be in the same room with Shapiro for a bit. I mean, it would probably.
Oh, it'd be
exhausting.
A great conversation. I'd love to have. I mean, a room with Shapiro and Jordan Peterson at the same time. That would be a great room to have a conversation in.
I can't push Jordan Peterson on people enough because I honestly think he might be one of the most intelligent people in our current lifetime. As far as his ability, his scope, his philosophy, the way he can synergize ideals and history and thoughts and put them together in this cogent form. And a lot of people think he's talking over them. I don't think so. If you really kind of just slow down and listen to him and follow him, and his books are fucking amazing. His books.
I haven't read any of his books yet.
Yeah, no, I do. As a matter of fact, I have one sitting right there that I'm going to be cracking open here soon. That's something I do want to read and not listen to, just to get the nuance of everything. But yeah, he's fucking just, when I have my ex-girlfriend who knows me very well tell me not too long ago that, he is smarter than you, Anthony, Jordan Peterson. I turned her onto him. It's like, he is smarter than you, and I'm like, I know, shut up. That's one guy. Jordan
Peterson's smarter than a lot of people. That's not an insult.
He's smarter than just about anybody I've ever even heard of. But I love that though. I take pride in my intellect, but when you get challenged by somebody like that and you can kind of be in awe, like when you're a football player and you're around a coach that makes you feel that way, or another older player or any of those in the Army, you and I had mentors that I just, I had a conversation with a young man recently about that, who I've been trying to mentor. It's kind of interesting. I almost text you to see what you thought of it, because he's been interested in kind of doing life improvement stuff, and both from the spirituality and just, he feels like he's in his 20s and he kind of screwed up his life early on, addiction and some other issues. Very smart guy, and I think a good guy. And we were texting back and forth, and I asked him a couple of questions, and I didn't hear from him for days, like nothing. And it was kind of an important contextual thing. And then I sent him. I wasn't even pissed. I'm like, this is kind of typical of him. I mean, this is, one of his issues and obstacles in life. And I sent him, I wouldn't say a smarmy text, but basically all right, motherfucker, I guess I'm just wasting my time with you here. Cool. Let me know if you do. And then he sends me, like, he tries to do the outmaneuver me on the psychology thing. Is everything okay with you, Coop? I mean, for somebody to not return a text and you to take it this seriously, I'm wondering what's going on in your life right now. And I'm like, oh my God, you didn't. No, you didn't. Yeah. You didn't just do that. You didn't just poke the bear. Because you really, what are you going to try to do? Fucking go to a spelling bee with me next? So I fucking wrote him a paragraph, and I told him, because I was thinking of you when I wrote him, kind of, and I wasn't mean. I wasn't like, you motherfucker, nothing like that. I said, you got this completely wrong. I said, I know that, I feel like you wanted me to be your mentor in a lot of ways, and you've reached out to me, and I'm really happy to help. I said, but let me tell you something about mentors. Let me tell you something about, we have a mentorship program in the Army. It was formal, which I kind of hated, but
I kind of thought that was stupid too, but yeah.
I didn't need it, because there were so many great men and women that I worked with and for that became my mentors just naturally. And like I said, look, I am not expecting this of you. You didn't come from my background. You don't know anything about this, but I treated my mentors kind of like they were walking gods. I mean, like I not like I got on my knees and bowed to them, but I did everything I could to honor the fact that they were taking the time, and the fact that I had that much respect for them. And, oh my God, you froze up again and you look like you're sleeping. This is awesome. I don't know if you can still hear me, but I'll finish my story. I spent almost everything I could do to make sure that they knew I respected that connection. That was really important, because if you lose your mentors can bail you out, can save your life. You know that. And I've had that I've had people stick up for me in the worst times of my life that were my mentors. Thank God, and, I tried to convey that to him, and I haven't heard from him again. That was like 2 months ago. So it's kind of interesting. I wanted to get your take on that, because I think I did the right thing. I didn't kick him out. I just said, hey, whatever you want to do, if you want to tell me to fuck off, you can, but I'll still be here thinking about you, praying for you. And anytime you want to reach out, you let me know. And that's the last.
You probably hurt his pride a little bit.
I was intending to.
He probably had a different perception of the way things were. And sometimes people need to have their pride poked a little bit. I've had a few folks, obviously I've had some great mentors in my life. I've had a few folks that have considered me their mentor. So it's that dynamic's always in play. Just real quick, you were talking about some, podcasters and Peterson and other stuff. I found a comedian recently that I've actually kind of started to grow warm to. You ever get the chance? A guy named Matt Rife, R-I-F-E.
Are you a fan of his?
Yeah, I've started to become a fan, because what I like is his entire shtick is based on interaction with the audience.
Yeah, it is.
He's very, very quick-witted. So I've kind of started to warm up to his comedy a lot recently. He's a little bit more expressive than some of the folks I normally like to watch. But he's funny because he interacts. I've seen some other interviews with him where he's not quite the douche that he comes across on stage. A lot of that's part of the act. He talks about one of the best lines I heard out of him was when he talked about what he's looking for in a woman. And he said, "I want a woman that feels like home." I thought that was a very profound line.
Yeah, I get that. But
some of his interactions with the crowd, I liked the bit he did on trans people saying that they had a harder life. And he starts talking about people in wheelchairs. He's like, I feel like, there's a guy with no legs and then the trans person. The trans person says, "I feel like I'm stuck in another body." And the guy with no legs is like, "So you have like 4 legs now? That's the shit you want to rub in my face?" So it's yeah. I mean, it sounds like you maybe have heard of him, but
I definitely have it. I had a feeling about him. I've seen a little bit. I will look into him a little bit more because my feeling about him is like, okay, the guy's a douche. I mean, he
comes across that way, but that's part of the act.
His tour poster is him with his shirt off and posing provocatively.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, and I'm a hardcore comedian guy. You know, I grew up prior Carlin. I think the best comedian alive right now, other than Dave Chappelle, is Bill Burr.
Bill Burr's awesome.
I think he literally, I would even say, I don't know, you can't compare he and Chappelle, two different guys. I don't know that Chappelle's a better comedian. I think Bill Burr is.
I think Bill Burr's better than I like Chappelle, some of the stuff, but Bill Burr is a very good comedian.
Right. And I'm a connoisseur of comedy like that. And so that's kind of my stuff. So I see this young guy that all the girls are fawning over, and his entire audience is made up of 25-year-old hot chicks, and that's it. I'm just like, you know, I don't know. I'll try again though.
He plays a douche. He does it intentionally. It's part of the act. It's part of what draws people to him. But he's so quick-witted, and the way he interacts with the audience, like this one woman who was talking about how she, broke up with her boyfriend because he never wanted to do anything with her. He's like, so what'd your boyfriend do? He's like, well, he was in, an EMT. He's like, oh, so he was a hero. You might think that at the end of the day, when Superman gets home, he doesn't want to, try to save Lois Lane 15 more times. It's just the way he plays off of that. Like I said, I've started to watch more of his stuff over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm a pseudo fan. I'm thinking about watching one of his comedy specials. I just caught some clips on YouTube. Look into him a little more. Go in understanding that he's playing a douche on purpose.
That shtick.
Yeah, it's think of it as the college frat boy that's kind of smarter than a lot of people, and that's just the way he's playing it off.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, I'll check him out again because, like I said, that was my feeling in the pit of my stomach because you know how that reviles me.
Yeah,
pussy man kind of beta looking stuff, but he's still like in all the girls. Oh God, my wife is so hot. It's like it's really not the point of comedy, but I don't know.
I don't find him hot. Maybe you will.
I'm a snob. No, I've seen him many times. It's like he's a decent looking human, but he looks kind of amphibious to me. So I don't get that, but anyway. But my standards of what make men hot are no, I'm kidding.
Ryan Reynolds or Jensen Ackles?
I just think masculinity, true masculinity, not false masculinity, is the most important process there. So, and I think most women down deep agree with that. I know that. So, you want to have these, toy boy fantasies. I don't think I'm interested in you as a human being. So, anyway, and French guys, I want to beat up every French guy I've ever met in my life.
Don't worry, the rest of the world's already done it.
Exactly. Although I do like, what's that one guy? Wait, he's not even French. I was going to say I like Adrian Brody as an actor, but I don't even know if he's French. He just looks French.
I don't know what he is. I think he's either British or American, but I don't think he's French.
Big old beak on him. Yeah, he's a good actor though. I really like him. Anyway, why don't we wrap it up, dude? We've been at it for almost an hour and a half, and I got to go into town and do some shopping. So
make sure you have your Prada bag with you.
My what?
Your Prada bag.
Yeah, we do have some nice outlets just a few minutes from my house, but I spend too much money if I go over there. So. Anyway, well, it's good to see you, man. I'll get this out probably tomorrow morning. And,
all right, sounds good. We didn't get to half our topics, but that's like par for the course.
Yeah, I know. We talked about one thing we said we were going to talk about, and then kind of went off on a tangent. But we'll maybe do a little bit better job at doing some actual analysis next time. Who knows?
Yeah.
So anyway, this is more like blah blah blah. Listen to us talk. We're a bunch of curmudgeonly old white men who hate everything.
And who have strange man crushes every once in a while.
That's right. All right, brother. I'm going to sign off. Good to see you, man.
Okay. Take care.
Out here.